大家好，欢迎来到新京报地球连线直播间。近期有一位英国工程师称，他利用新技术已经定位到马航 MH370的具体位置。今天我们邀请到这位工程师 Richard Godfrey，跟他一起探讨他在马航 MH370搜寻工作上的最新进展。There are a lot of media coverage on your recent report on the location of MH370, and we really appreciate that you accepted our interview so we could have some first-hand information on the actual report and on your actual work of the location of MH370. So our first question is, because it's quite technical, all the report, and I want to hear from you. Could you tell us in the most simple language about what makes your discovery a breakthrough in looking for MH370?
Yes, sure. It's a very good question. We have data from the Inmarsat satellite, but that data when the plane is in the Indian Ocean is only around about every hour. We have data from oceanographers, but that is based on 33 items of floating debris that have been found in the Indian Ocean, and is relatively precise, but it's not very precise. That points to 32 degrees south or 33 degrees south, that area near the seventh arc. We have data from Boeing, and we know exactly how much fuel was on board the aircraft and how long that would last. But that doesn't tell us which way the aircraft went. It just could tell us how far. So the new breakthrough is important because the WhisperNet radio data, which is collected in a historic database going back to 2008, and there are hundreds of signals every 2 minutes. So this is helping us to get a much better idea of the flight path and the crash location of MH370.
This is new. You said they've been collecting it since 2008, and no one has used it before to try to locate MH370?
The reason the radio amateur community collect this data is to check the propagation of their radio signals. They communicate around the globe, so they could be sitting in Europe and wanting to talk to a friend in Australia, and this is how they know what the propagation of the radio waves look like. So no one until the last year has thought about using this data for tracking aircraft, and in particular using the data to track MH370. A man by the name of Dr. Robert Westphal first came up with the idea, and I'm working together with him, and he's been very helpful because he's an expert in WhisperNet technology, and he's also a radio amateur, so that helps too.
Okay. So no one thought about using that before.
Yeah, it's a piece of lateral thinking, using data which was designed for one thing, but and using it for another purpose. The same is also true of the Inmarsat satellite data that we have. Inmarsat satellite data is designed for communication between the aircraft and the ground. And it's not designed as a system for tracking aircraft, but we could use the data to work out how far the aircraft was from the satellite and how fast the aircraft was going relative to the satellite. So sometimes you get data designed for one purpose, but you can use it for another.
Yeah, it sounds like you just gather a lot of different sources of information and trying to find the...
Yes, it's combining all the sources of information. Some comes from satellite people, some from oceanographers, some from aircraft manufacturers like Boeing, some from the radio amateur community, and they don't all talk to each other all the time. But no one combines all the data from different sources.
We've mentioned the search about from the previous searches of the MH370. How different are they like the area they cover, like now then cover the location you mentioned?
Yes, I mean they've been covering areas as large as 120,000 square kilometers. When you have to cover a large area like that, you can only afford to go past each location one time, and you go up and down in rows, about a kilometer wide, and if you miss something, you can't always go back everywhere and look at a second time or a third time.
Yeah.
For example, if you take 5 nautical miles around my crash location, that's an area of about 300 square kilometers. That's a lot less than 120,000. And so with an area like that, you can afford to go every which way. You can go 3 times, 4 times. And if wreckage is behind a cliff or in a canyon, you can look twice, 3 times from different angles until you pick it up. So it makes it much easier. I mean, it's very difficult to search on the seafloor. It's much easier when you have a smaller focus.
Okay, I get it now. What is your next step? Like, would there be any like search going on for this location that you mentioned in your report, or?
Yes, I've had confirmation from the authorities that have been conducting the search. They are looking seriously at my report, asking me a number of questions. They're also looking seriously at the previous data that they gathered in underwater searches, so sonar contact data, just checking the area that I've identified. And there are a number of organizations who indicated that they're willing to go back to the southern Indian Ocean and to search further. The company Ocean Infinity searched in 2018, and they consider this is unfinished business. They want to go back and find MH370. It is important, I think, the Malaysian authorities, who are the owners of the Malaysian aircraft, give their agreement to a further search.
Yeah. And for us to actually find the aircraft, what do you think is most important now for us to do?
To actually find it, I think we have to go back out into the Indian Ocean. Technology has moved on in underwater search. People have very sophisticated autonomous underwater vehicles that can be launched, that can talk to a ship on the surface, can talk to each other and work out where best to look. There are even smaller new autonomous underwater vehicles that can be dropped from a parachute from a plane into the ocean. They come to the surface to recharge their battery from solar panels. They communicate via satellite. You don't actually have to send a ship out to do a search. If you want to salvage, if you find the wreckage and you want to salvage that, then you need a ship, and you need a crane on the ship, and you need a remotely operated vehicle that can go down to that depth. We're talking about 4,000 meters under the surface of the water.
It's 4,000 meters below the ocean. Like, I have no idea what's going to be like. And how's the technology going so far? You've introduced some as well, but I assume that it has developed a lot since 2014.
At 4,000 meters depth, and it could be even deeper. There are points where it goes even deeper than that. It's very dark. It's very cold. There's intense pressure. And it's a very difficult terrain. There are mountains and canyons and ridges and cliffs, even volcanoes on the floor of the sea. So in 7.5 years, maybe Some wreckage has been covered up with sand or silt or mud or ash from a volcano. But they have detectors that can detect metal pieces, large pieces like the core of an engine or the landing gear. And these systems can detect metal even when it's under sand or silt and buried. So I'm very hopeful that a new search will actually find the plane.
I think you mentioned in your report that Ocean Infinity actually missed the location that this time you mentioned in your report, like by 28 kilometers. And there have been like searches going on for the MH370. My next question was going to be like, how confident are you in actually finding the aircraft?
I think technology's moved on, but I think also the combining of very independent data from different fields like oceanography or aerospace or satellite or radio technology, these all point to the same location. So when you have 4 independent data pointing at the same location, then I'm very, very confident.
And apart from that, what obstacle you see in actually finding the aircraft?
I think there has to be an agreement with the political leadership in Malaysia. Obviously, the Chinese government and the Australian government had conducted the previous searches. They covered 120,000 square kilometers and spent a lot of money, 200 million Australian dollars on this. It's important to, they've insisted quite correctly that there's credible new evidence before they're willing to agree to a further search. So I think there's a political debate and a technical debate that needs to go on. I've still to publish my papers in detail with all of the technical detail that needs a further peer review. I've had several peer reviews already, but a wider community of scientists and engineers need to support the idea. So all of this understandably takes time. And before someone's willing to spend a lot of money, but there are people out there who are philanthropists who are willing to fund this themselves.
Okay, I get it now. And how long have you been working on like the location of MH370?
I've been working 7.5 years since 2014.
Wow.
And about 8 hours a day on average. So you can imagine in that time you cover a lot of ground.
Okay, the last one is about like your opinion. There is some criticism online saying that this new discovery might be just drawing attention and it will only trigger like sadness for the victim's family because it offers them hope, but there's no guarantee. What do you think of that? Is there anything you want to respond to?
Yes, I think the next of kin, I'm in regular contact with them and they're very supportive of my work and very encouraging. I've received several emails this week. They've obviously seen the media coverage and are following the whole situation closely. I think it's very understandable, especially when you introduce new technology, that people have questions and they have doubts. We issued a challenge this week to the detractors to download some data from the WhisperNet. The database is publicly available. And you look when aircraft are arriving or departing from Réunion or Mauritius, and you will find there's a match. The time and the data in Australia, 6,000 kilometers away. Anyone can take a look and work it out for themselves. They don't need to anybody else to get in the way. And
Yeah.
I'm not asking people to believe me. I'm just, if they don't want to believe me, that's fine. I've published all my results, so people can look at it, but they can look for themselves.
But it's like more than 100 people, 100 Chinese nationals who were on that airplane. Yeah, and now since last week, I think there's a lot of new news media coverage on this respect. Is there anything you want to convey to them?
Yeah, I am very mindful of the 153 Chinese nationals who were on board. That's more than any other country. And I'm very appreciative of you and other Chinese media taking up this story. It's important that we communicate with the next of kin in China. So I'm thinking of them. I have experienced tragedy personally in my own life, and I can appreciate how they're feeling. I think all the time about the families and friends, the next of kin of those who lost loved ones on board MH370. Those families need closure. They need to know what happened and exactly where and when. I think the aviation industry is interested to know what happened because they want to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think the flying public, and there are over 10 million of us who get on a plane every day, want to know. A lot of people have a fear of flying, and when they're sitting in an aircraft, they want to know they're going to arrive at their destination. So it's important to all of these groups of people to find out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much today for accepting our interview. It's so good to actually listen to first-hand information, and now I have a rough idea of how this whole very rough, but I have a general idea of the discovery of MH370 is actually going on. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.